Hey gamers, today we're going to look at Templar, the Secret Treasures. Let's check it out. Alright, to set up for this game, what you're going to do is you're going to put your little score token tracker right there on the cross there. All your little players will be here outside of this door, as will Severus, which I'll get to him in a minute. The abbot will be in the room. You'll also have the abbot spy. In whatever room you put him in, he'll be one space behind or one room away from the abbot. You'll have the locked door little token here, and it will be placed right here at the beginning of the game, and it can get moved later on in the game. Each player is going to have their own deck of cards, and everyone's going to have the same type of cards. I'll get to what those cards are in a minute. They're going to start with this little scorecard here. This is for in-game points here, and then they start with rings. They have 2 circle rings, 2 square rings, and 1 octagon ring. You can tell by the shape. Now they can have, there's 2 choices to set up this game. I have it to where you have all your rest of your treasures just set it right next to you. They also say you can put them up here by the storage rooms here if you want to do that. So whichever way is simpler. Speaking of the storages, you'll take these tokens from this bag that has these little Indian elephants on there. This has no theme with the board game. I guess they got these cheap somewhere and said, hey, let's use these. Really weird though. This is the bag that came with the game. Anyway, you're drawing tokens from this bag. You're randomly putting them out around here into the storage, and then you are ready to play. So what you're going to do is every player at the beginning of their turn is going to pick one of these cards from their deck, and I'll show you what each one of these do in a minute. And they're going to put it face down, flip them all up, and then do those actions. After that, it's going to go around the board. Each person is going to play a card and make their movement. So let me show you some of these cards here. These first 3 are basic cards. They're basically move and plant treasure cards. These 3 monks, Angelus, Joshua, and Lucas. They're easy to read. This top number here tells you how many spaces you can move, and this bottom number here tells you how many treasures you can move. So for instance, if I play this card, I can move 1 space and plant 3 treasure. Or Joshua lets me go 2 spaces and only plant 2 treasure. Lucas can travel really fast, but I only get to plant 1 treasure. So what you would do, let's say I played Angelus here, and I'd place him, and I'd move my little player token 1 space, and I could plant up to 3 treasures. And since I have rings, I could go 1, 2, and 3. Now, if you look on the board, stars represent where rings can be held. These little golden thing cups are the chalices, and these little gray areas are books, and you have chalices and books that you can pick up in your treasury as well later on in the game. But for right now, that's where I'm going to start. Now, it does matter where you place the rings, because if let's say green player made it here before me, and they had placed a square ring on that table, well, that means all rings on that table must match that ring. So that means it has to be square rings. I couldn't put my circle ring there. It'd have to be a square ring. So maybe instead I put 1 there, maybe my other square ring there, and for my 3rd treasure, I'll just make it a circle, and I'll put it on one of these individual little tables there. But that goes, as you see, there's a lot of little tables in the game, and so if it's ever on a table, it must match whatever ring was first placed on there. Alright, so those are the base movement cards. Let's look at some of the other stuff you have here. Next up you have Benjamin. Benjamin can move up to 3 spaces, and he gets to move someone's ring, either your own or someone else's. So basically what I could do, let's say purple is here, you don't even have to start in that room that you want to move a ring on. If I was here, I'd go 1, 2, I'd pick up maybe one of my rings and go 3 and lay it on this table. Or maybe instead I'd pick up one of the green rings and place it on, this table over here. Now, why would you want to move another player's ring? Well, for 2 reasons. This in-game scoring here says at the end of the game, however many rooms you have treasure in, you're going to get X amount of victory points. So maybe you're doing it to block. Maybe I'm moving this one to block green player and keep them out of that room. So, because the game may end, I don't want them to get in all 13 rooms. That would give them 20 points. Or maybe I'm trying to move my rings over and get a ring in every room to get these end victory points. So Benjamin is a very interesting character to play because you're either helping yourself or screwing other players over with him. The next one is Stephanus. Stephanus will move 2 spaces and he will score as many people as there are in the room. So for instance, again, let's say I play Stephanus and it says 2, but you can move up to 2. You can move 1 if you want to. You don't have to move 2. And let's say that I'll bring Severus in there too. And let's say that I move Stephanus and he went in here. Well, he would get 3 victory points. 1, 2, 3. There's 3 other people in the room, so I'd move up 3 on the victory point counter. Very simple. Porticus is really cool because he can move that door, that locked door, and you get a victory point. So I'd get a victory point, and then I get to move this locked door anywhere I want. So maybe I move it right here. Now when I move a locked door there, no player, not even the abbot, can go through that locked door until someone else plays Porticus and they move the door. And of course, as you can see, the door can be stopping people from scoring points or planting treasure or whatever you want. But that's what Porticus does. Next up is Severus. He can move up to 3 spaces. You do get a victory point for playing him, and whenever he's in a room, you may not plant treasure in that room, and you may not score the room, which I'll get to how scoring works in a minute. But let's say Severus was here, and that means if purple player or any player came in here, they could not plant treasure when Severus is around. And if the abbot came over, because the abbot's the one that moves and he can score rooms, the abbot cannot score a room as long as Severus is in there. So he's kind of like a wet blanket in the whole abbey. No one likes Severus. Next up, let's get to Regimus, who is the abbot here. Now he can move up to 2 spaces and he will score the room depending on how much is in there. So let's say that he moved on in here, and wherever the abbot moves, by the way, the spy moves with him. So if the abbot moved here, the spy would move here. Now what's the purpose of the spy? The purpose of the spy is that the abbot can never move into a room with a spy. So if he moves here, it basically forces the abbot to keep moving around the abbey. So you won't have this little thing going on. 1, 2, I'm going to score that room again, get more points. So to stop that, they've invented this character, the spy, that forces the abbot to move around the abbey. Maybe you can go around in circles. Well, if that locked door wasn't there, I could go around in a circle. But other than that, it prevents you from scoring rooms over and over again, which I really like that aspect of it. And that's basically all the spy is. So wherever the abbot moves, the spy moves as well. But let's say he was in here, and let's say that purple maybe had this, they maybe had a chalice here. And let's say the abbot came here for whatever reason. Maybe they were over here in Severus's room. There you go. He went 1, 2. Or he could just go 1 and stop there, and the spy would just stop right behind him to ensure that he couldn't score that room, back-to-back times. So then when we score it, well, how do you score the room? Well, each chalice is worth 4 victory points. Each book is worth 3 victory points, and each ring there is worth 2 victory points. Now, when he scores, he will also score the room for anyone else who has treasure in there. So that means green is going to get 2 victory points as well. And when it scores, you'll just flip it over. And as you see, it has the little cross on it to show that it's been scored. It can't be scored again. Same thing with the book. You'd close the book, and you would close the green player's ring right there. And so the green player would get 2 points. I think that's, 4, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 points for them. So they would move up right there, and they'd flip over this, but they'd only flip over 1 of their rings. Rings can score multiple times. So if you have more than 1 ring in there, let's say I had all of these rings in here. Well, I'd score all those rings, but I only had to flip over 1. And maybe the next time the abbot came into that room to score, I would get 6 more points, but only have to flip over 1 more ring. So rings give you the lowest amount of scoring points. However, they can score multiple times. That can really add up. In fact, at the end of the game, when it's all over, any unscored rings, meaning rings still face up, score 1 more time in the game, you'll get 2 victory points for any unscored ring as well. And of course, rings is what you're going to have the most of in this game. Of course, there's tons of star spaces to plant them too. So anyway, that's how the abbot works. That's how he scores things. Next up you have Maria. When you play her, you get to move your little pawn over here to the storehouse. You can move into any one of these little storehouse sections that you want to, and you would take all those treasures. So for instance, if I place it here, I get a chalice, I get 2 circled rings and 2 octagon rings. So I'd remove these from the board, and then I would pull those from my stash. So, you know, maybe a chalice, what was that, 2 circles and 2 octagon rings. And that's how you can grab more treasure to plant, because you'll eventually be planting all this stuff. You'll need to go back and get more, and Maria lets you go to the storehouse and get those goodies. And of course, throughout the game, these things are going to be moved out. You know, they're going to start emptying out, and you're going to be like, oh no, there's not much out there. What's going to happen? Well, don't worry, because there's one more card you can play. It's the doves. When you play the doves, not only do you get to pick all the cards back up and put them into your hand, but you also refill the storage area for ever how many were on the previous card, whatever this number was. As you see, each one of these cards has a number at the top right corner there, and basically whatever the last number was played when this one was played, that's how many treasures you would fill it up. So I'd fill it with 10. So I'd draw 10 tokens from this, you know, bag that looks like Raja the Ganges, and I would put them out 1 per storage room, starting with the ship. If that was full, I'd move to the next one and then go 1 and then 2 and then 3, and since these are full here, I'd go 4, 5, 6, as you see how this is going. So you keep going until you got 10 out there. So 7, 8, 9, and 10, and that's how it would work. And so that's how the storage room can get refilled. Now, one of the coolest things about this game is that you cannot play a card that was previously played from another player. So for instance, let's say in the round that green player played Porticus, and the blue player, his last card was Aslamus, okay? So that means I cannot play either one of those 2 cards and must play a different card. And so I play Lucas. Okay, that means now that it's this player's turn, they cannot not play Aslamus or Lucas. They must play a different card. So it basically forces you to watch out which cards you play on which turns, because you cannot play a card that has been previously played, which of course leads you to play maybe this card, which will let you pick up your hand again. So that's a really neat feature. Now the game ends 90% of the time, maybe 99% of the time, when this bag is empty. When this bag is empty, you have no more tokens to refill the storage, then the game ends, everyone finishes out the round. Or if, you know, which has only happened once in our games here, if someone gets treasures in all 13 rooms, then the game ends. Well, it finishes out the round and the game ends. You do your final scoring. Whoever has the most points wins the game. Final thoughts, what do I think about the game? Well, it says Queen Games on the side, which should give you a hint. I love Queen Games. This game dropped on clearance at a few sites at $15. I was like, for $15, I got to at least give it a shot, right? And this is a good one. This is a good one. It's not my favorite Queen game, but it's a good one. And the reason I'm hesitant to say if it's a great game or not is because I haven't played it enough as I want to. I tried to get to the table as much as I could before this review, and now I just have to go ahead and do the review. But there's seriously something wrong with the way we play this game. Man, those tokens that are in the storage room, they run out, in my opinion, way too fast. But we could be playing the game wrong, because we love to do 2 things. We love to fill up, stock up on treasure, and then we like to spread that treasure out into one big room usually, and try to get the abbot to score that room and make a buku amount of points. The problem with that, though, as we keep pulling out treasure, everyone keeps pulling out treasure, then when you go to stock, there's not as much there. I can't tell you how many people would play Maria, and then they'd play the doves, and then they'd take 10 tokens out and spread them out around there. Well, if you do that, you know, 4, 5, 8 times in a game, the game ends like that. Seriously, the highest score we've ever had in this game is 31, and that was by me. I was so happy that I broke into the 30s, because no one had been able to do it before me. This is a fun game. I don't know if I need to change the rule or not, saying that maybe we need to let that bag go through all the tiles twice before ending it, but it seems like or maybe we should just change up our strategy. There was one time I got treasure in all 13 rooms. I mean, that's how I got my 31. Because you end the game and you only have like 8, 6, 7 points, and then we add up our end score, and that's where we get most of our points there. So, like I said, we're just playing it a little bit wrong, because I know there's a way to get all around that board. I mean, they wouldn't have those points if it weren't possible. So we're just playing it wrong, maybe. Meaning our strategy is wrong. The rules aren't wrong. We're playing the rules right this time. But maybe if I eliminate that token rule and say, okay, if you bury all your treasure or get 13, rooms, that will end the game. Maybe that will let it go on a little bit more, because we want to score a lot more than we do in this game. But that being said, yes, I do think this is worth your time. It is a fun game, and is definitely staying in my collection. All right, gamers, that's all the time I have for now. Until then, game on!